Welcome, everyone, to another episode of HR and Payroll 2.0. I'm Pete Tiliakis, and as always, I'm joined by the legendary Julie Fernandez. Welcome, Julie.
Thanks, Pete. And I think you're going to introduce us to John B., right?
Yes. I am really excited to have the founder of Willory Consulting, the author of HR Like a Boss, and the host of the podcast by the same name, Mr. John Bernatovicz. Did I get that right, John?
Fantastic, Pete. Way to go. Yes, you passed the test.
All right.
Starting strong.
I'm sorry, no prize. You just passed.
No. Very good. Well, look, it's excellent to have you here, man. We're really excited to learn from you and share with our audience. And as always, I'll let Julie do the honors to get us going.
Yeah, John, if you've listened at all, we just really want to start by understanding, how did you find your way to HR? Few people seem to purposely start that way. What's your story?
Actually, I graduated from college at Kent State University. Go Golden Flashes. I thought of a career in professional golf for about a week or so, but I realized I was not as good as most of the players that played Division I golf, but I was better than a lot, which was fun. I had a great time doing that. And I got a job interview for a company called ADP. Either of you ever heard of it before? ADP?
No.
Okay, never heard of it. It's a small little company from New Jersey. They're trying to make their name in the payroll business. Anyway, I got that role. I was in sales and then in management with them for approximately 9 years. That included small business and national accounts and some management. And then I got super passionate about supporting and calling on and helping and networking with HR and payroll professionals, as well as finance and accounting and IT professionals, as you know, crossing over in a lot of those different disciplines. And I just love the idea of being there and supporting people. I'm a go-giver by mentality, and I just really think that business is all about having a clear vision and strategy, and then a like-minded group of people that know what they're supposed to do to meet and match that vision and strategy. And I poured my heart into our community and human resources and payroll. And I first and foremost do that by empowering the people that work at my firm the best that I possibly can. And I don't know. I'm a sucker for people. I'm one of those HR professionals that still likes people.
Yeah.
I don't know. It's kind of hard for me to say that I don't practice human resources every single moment of every single day as a business owner. You're doing some of that here and there, but some sales, some marketing, some accounting, some finance, some, IT work, whatever you got to do to keep the lights on, so to speak. But when it comes to HR, I truly believe in the profession. I think it's undervalued and underappreciated. Payroll as well. And just for whatever reason, God got me that job with ADP, and I've poured my heart into the profession for the last 27, 28 years. It's hard to believe.
Isn't it funny? Well, there's the why you stay, right? I mean, it has a way of just sinking its teeth into you and making you feel like, I'm helping. I'm doing something really good here, and I'm talking to people.
I thought that my exact self, Julie. It's funny you say that, because when I was first out of college, you go to, you don't know anything.
Right.
And it's like payroll, ADP, like, oh my gosh, it's a job. My dad said it was a good company. Okay, I'll go work there. And then I start to get to know people, and they've been there for 10, 20, 30, 40 years almost. Yeah. And I'm thinking to myself, this is payroll, right? Why are you doing this for 40 years in a row? What is wrong with you? And then all of a sudden, fast forward the tape, I'm 13 years away from being that guy. I'm not dating anybody on this show, but my guess is we're in a similar age range is my guess. And it's like, holy cow, like I'm one of those suckers for human resources and payroll.
Yeah, I love that. I came out of the military and went straight into the PEO world, and I learned HR. I was an HR BP, basically at scale, leading HR ops and benefits and compliance for many, many companies. And it was such a formative time for me. I thought it was really nice to be able to have that track record of like what good HR looks like. And I think that there's, shout out to ADP. I'm very familiar with ADP. I worked very closely with them for years. Have the utmost respect, right? They really are the stalwart sort of flagship organization over the last 75 years in the space, if not invented the HR outsourcing space in a lot of ways. But I want to kind of hear from you a little bit about like I think there's so much alumni that have come from not just ADP but other parts of the HR services world. And I do a lot of consulting with or volunteering with veterans coming out of the military and transitioning, and all of the ones that are looking to go into HR, I tried to show them a path in through the HR vendors to say, look, this is a great way to go work in an organization that HR and payroll are their business, is their product. And what a wonderful way to learn, right? And they're investing in that skill and that talent. But how formative do you think that was for you? Because it was very formative for me personally. I worked in a shared services in the military. I didn't really understand what I was doing auditing HR data. But then when I went to the PEO, it really all just kind of clicked. And that just set my career off in HR. But maybe touch on that a little bit.
Well, hey, Pete, you gave Julie a lot of cred, but you have a lot of fans yourself as well. And first and foremost, thank you for your service. And for all the fans of Pete that are listening from his days back in the military, now have followed his career, I'm sure.
Here we are.
But you know what? It's ironic that you say that, because I haven't thought about that in a while, but I graduated from college in 4 years and a semester. And I thought about getting an MBA because I thought, well, it's better to do that now than later, because I'll never do it if I don't do it now. And I skipped over that because I got that opportunity. And I got an MBA at ADP in roughly 1 month. I mean, talk about drinking from a fire hose business wise, figuring out how to sell, how to market, how to communicate. You ended up learning the dynamics of accounting. I had to use a circular E to process payroll.
Man.
I'm sure both of you are young enough to be like, what's a circular? You can Google that or put it in a chat GPT. It'll tell you what it is.
The Bible. I used to call it the Bible.
We had to do that I remember going to Roseland, New Jersey for 2 weeks for training. And I'm right out of college. I just got this job. And one of the kids at the time sitting right next to me, one of my colleagues was like, if you don't pass this next test, you got to go home. I'm like, what? Like, oh my gosh, this is serious. And it was so high pressured, and there was such an intense amount of learning. And what I will say, it changed my life. I mean, there's no doubt about it. Getting that job put me in this position I am today, and learning the business, learning the business of HR and payroll as a platform to learn what it's like to run a company, because a lot of the clients that I work with first off were small business owners. I walk down streets and make phone calls and get referred to by CPAs and bankers to some guy that owns a trucking company. And the next place I'd go would be an ice cream shop. And the next place I would go would be a car repair location. And they were all in the business, learning, working, trying to make the best that they could. And it was an incredible education. The other really cool thing about ADP, and you mentioned alumni. I mean, the people that worked at ADP were first-rate human beings, just really good, salt of the earth, caring professionals. Some of my best friends I still have today are ones that I worked together at ADP. Shout out to Kim and to Kurt and to Jim and to Larry and to all the friends I had that once together at ADP. And now we are so fortunate to stay together. Every once in a while, get together for the holidays and whatnot. It's like a fraternity.
That's
you
so
go
cool.
back and you just remember the stories. You talk about the wins and the losses and the great fun times you had at a sales kickoff or whatever it was.
Yep.
And that business formation and relationship building became a foundation for how I try to run my business today and how I try to treat people.
Yeah, I love that. So, one of the things I want to get into with you, I'm excited about this, right? I want to talk about your podcast and your book. Like, tell me about HR like a boss, man. What does that mean exactly? And how exactly do you do it? How do you boss HR?
Well, there's a lot of ways you can. I think it's a catchy name first and foremost. I'll tell you the long-winded story because you said we got about 40 minutes, and I'll give you there's a short version and a long version if you want.
We got all the time we want. We got all the time.
Yeah, we got all the time. Well, I don't want to go overtime because then people they'll stop listening. But basically, here's how it went. I started my career, as you know, at ADP, and then I ended up leaving ADP after 10 years. I'd started a side hustle before it was a side hustle, and I got bit by the entrepreneurial bug, and I got into the recruiting space. And then eventually I merged those two experiences together, what I did at ADP around HR tech and the other one around staffing, to form Willory. And I just immersed myself into our business, started growing, hiring great people, hiring a couple people that didn't work out, which that's how the world goes, servicing the heck out of our customers, trying to deliver high quality, treat them with respect, care, and dignity. And over that time, I got to know some really incredible HR professionals. And I'll never forget one that stood out to me. And I'll have to send him this link to the podcast because you'll get appreciation for this. His name is Joe Safranek. He's a good other Polish heritage friend of mine. And I met with Joe. He was the head of total rewards at a publicly traded company in downtown Cleveland. And I had the most incredible connection with that man right off the jump. He was just concerned about me and my family and where I was from and my parents and my relationships I was in, and what I was interested in having kids and where's your career going. And we didn't talk about anything to do with total rewards or payroll or ADP. I thought that's a really cool cat. And I got to know him more and more, and he was even more impressive over time. I said, Joe, you are doing a different version of human resources. And this is in 2004. Fast forward the tape, I meet a number of people over the course of my career, and I run into some other similar Joseph Franick type of people.
Yeah.
But then I also ran into a lot of HR professionals that were struggling, that were feeling like they didn't have the seat at the table. A lot of payroll professionals who were relegated to a job that they didn't dream of being in. They just kind of got tapped on the shoulder and said, "Oh, you look like you can process payroll." And next thing you know, 25 years later, they're processing payroll. And I met all these wonderful people that were in different stages of their professional success in their career. You know, some struggling, some had reached the pinnacle, some were on retirement. And then I had some really unique things happen. We acquired a couple customers of ours that were really awful at what they did in the spirit of human resources. And they hired us to help and support them. And we got to see a little bit of a before and after of what it's like to do HR not at all. Or horribly, to doing it in a way that was caring and dignified and strategic and aligned to the business. And we started to hear rumblings after that of, oh gosh, this life's a little bit easier and the owner's a little less anxious and we have more money in the bank account. And all these things started to happen. And I thought to myself, well, we're doing something right. We're doing something good. Now, here's where the story gets a little emotional. I apologize if I overshare, but in 2019, I lost my mom to breast cancer. My mom is my biggest fan. If I know hopefully most of you are listening, but behind me is a mural that my mom had painted. It's a vistage driving down the highway into Asheville, North Carolina on a beautiful fall afternoon. And then a year later, my dad passed away. He died from pancreatic cancer. So bang, bang, you lose these two wonderful human beings. My mom was a creative artist. My dad was a CEO of a healthcare system. Talk about two opposites attracting. And they merged to make me and my three siblings. And I'm described as a creative entrepreneur. And I sat there and I thought to myself, okay, I'm 46 years old. It's time for me to grow up. What am I going to do? And I started to create this bucket list in my mind. At the very top of that list was to write a book. And the funny part about me writing a book was I actually went to college. My last 2 years, junior and senior year, I never bought a book because I realized my freshman and sophomore year, I paid the money for the books, never took them out of the bag and just took them back and lost 70% of my money for nothing. I just learned by listening and showing up. So I was that nerdy kid in college that went to every single class. They do exist. I sat in the front row. I got to know the professors. I asked them a bunch of questions because that's how I learned. I had a reading comprehension challenge, an issue I came to find out later in life. And here I am, I'm going to write a book. Like, what are you, crazy? And the only business book that I read from front to cover from the age of 20 to 46 was Who Moved My Cheese. And does that really count? Does a book count in the amount of time I shouldn't say it. Like, it sits by a toilet for a reason because it's a short read. And anyway, I'm writing this book and I start pouring my heart into it, and I start talking to my therapist because at the time I was in a really unique place, having lost both my parents. And she said to me, you have imposter syndrome. That's what your struggle is. You are impersonating a writer in your mind. You really don't feel like you are. And she started asking me about the book, and she says, John, you have a domain expertise in this area, and you have a story to tell. And she gave me a great piece of advice beyond that because her husband was in the publishing space. She goes, you don't write the book for anybody else other than yourself. Just write. And so I just started writing. And I just started getting things out. I was told by my writing coach, just don't edit your first draft. Just get the ideas out of your head. Just let them pound out. And luckily, I started reading around that time because I thought, okay, if I'm going to be a writer, I might as well have some domain expertise in it. So I read a few books. One of them was James Clear's Atomic Habits. I ended up pairing an existing habit, which was weekend time to myself in the mornings because my kids were sleeping in and my wife liked to sleep in at that time as well. And I used to have 2 or 3 hours in the morning. I would get up and just do whatever I wanted to. I'd work out, I'd veg out, I'd go play golf, whatever the case is. Well, I decided to start writing in that time. And I said, if I can write 1,000 words every single weekend, by the end of 1 year, I'll have a manuscript, 50,000 words. In the midst of all that, I talked to a couple friends. One of them was Steve Brown. If you haven't had Steve Brown on the show, you should.
Okay.
He was amazing. I can give you his contact information. Very well known in the SHRM.
Yeah, we'll take it. Yeah.
He actually connected me with the publisher at SHRM. And I'm like, well, thank you so much. But I'm a nobody, right? I have no idea what I'm doing. And I'm only a quarter of the way through my book. And anyway, I talked to Matt Davis, and Matt Davis signed me on the spot. He said, you were referred by Steve Brown. That's good enough for me. And I love the title of your book. And you seem passionate about writing it. And then it got really serious. Finished the manuscript, went through all the planning to market it. We launched the book October 23rd of 2023. And it became SHRM's first ever #1 new release on Amazon in the HR category, which is fascinating. Because as I look back, there had been about 70 or 80 authors that had written thought leadership books that were from SHRM. One of them's name was Johnny C. Taylor. Whoops.
Yeah. Who's that guy? Yeah.
Who knows who that guy is? And then I realized that, okay, most #1 new releases on Amazon, they sell for 99 cents for the first week so that they can get that #1 new release. We were selling HR Like a Boss for $29.99.
Awesome.
Which makes that even more of a really cool accomplishment.
Milestone,
and here's the reason why. It had nothing to do with me. It had to do with the fact that people gravitated to the idea of doing HR in an amazingly awesome way. I told a story through social media for about 2.5 years of me writing the book. I made my goal very public of what I was doing and why I was doing it. And I created this small that became a little bit larger in the HR community, and they were excited about it. They purchased it. We sold out on Amazon, literally had the sold out sign on Amazon. Somebody told me that's great. And another guy that's in the business says that should never happen, but it did. And HR Like a Boss is basically, the premise of HR Like a Boss is set on 5 foundational items: thinking differently, being different, being better, taking action, and making an impact. And I built the framework of all that concept around a presentation that I had done years before called HR Like a Boss. And that presentation turned into a manuscript, turned into a podcast, has now evolved into the HR Like a Boss community, which we have about 1,700 people that are involved in that. And then I'm been blessed to tour the country and maybe the world at some point, sharing the keynote of HR Like a Boss. And what I feel like when I go to these events, and I'll end with this, I said it was going to be long-winded. I apologize if
you're fine.
Of you are bored. It's this celebration of a function that's never celebrated.
Yes.
One of the key aspects of what I do is I ensure that at the beginning or end of my presentation, we give each other a standing ovation so people can feel what it's like to be appreciated, loved, and cared for in a very isolated, difficult, under-resourced job.
Yes.
And I think the community sees that what we're doing is all about celebrating and supporting them in this mission of transforming how people feel at work through the power of human resources. And that's a long-winded story of what HR Like a Boss is all about, how it came to be. God bless my mom and dad and all my friends. The last thing I'll share with you, Pete and Julie, we showcase 47 other HR professionals in the book. I would write a concept. I would talk to a friend. I'd take my concept and mirror it up with the friend that had a comment about it, and they validated the points that I was making. Joseph Franick was in the book. Steve Brown wrote the foreword for the book.
Nice.
And there's 45 other people. I don't have enough time here to give you referrals for potential future guests on the show, but they're amazingly awesome, and it was great to showcase their expertise.
What's up, everyone? Pete Tiliakis here, coming to you with a personal invite to join me and Team Betterment as we host a live panel discussion on one of my favorite topics, the power of flexibility in the workplace. I'll be joined by a stellar HR exec lineup on May 20th at 12 p.m. Eastern Time for Flexibility Enablers, HR tools shaping the future of work. Together, we'll unpack how forward-thinking companies are using flexibility to differentiate in the war for talent by shaping highly personalized and differentiated employee experiences that drive measurable business outcomes. Whether you're an HR leader, a people manager, or just passionate about the future of work, this is your chance to hear practical insights and walk away with strategies you can apply immediately. So registration is now open for this unique live event, and I hope I'll see you there. Yeah. Well, what a beautiful story, man. There's so much there to touch on. But I think the key thing is that, A, you didn't give up, right? I mean, you stayed persistent. But, I think the takeaway is that, and I love the advice, some of that around writing. I've had some of these struggles about things I wanted to write as well. And I kind of took some of the same approach. But I think the most important part of that is you had someone who believed in you when you didn't believe, and just kept you going. Because so many people, I was talking to someone the other day about this, that, so much failure in the world is in our head, right? It's like, we've got these opportunities or we've got these capabilities, but oh, I can't, or I'll never, or, not me. I'm not an author. I'm not a whatever, an actor, whatever it is you want to be. And I think some of that is having the right people, surrounding yourself with the right network that's going to lift you up and keep you going and keep you focused on, hey, you can do this and you can make it. So thankfully that you kept going. But maybe I want to ask you this kind of as an offshoot from that, all that said, you're out there on the front lines at Willory, and I know some of the scope of what you guys do, but talk a little bit about what you guys are doing and what are you seeing right now, just in terms of of the struggles still that HR is facing and companies. Because you mentioned a good point about kind of the lack of appreciation, but I would even argue that HR isn't even really understood at the right level in the C-suite, and so I'm just curious what kind of trends you're seeing. What are you guys facing out there, and what do you think you're in that context you're able to help companies start to open up to?
Pete, I'll reframe what you said about HR not being understood. I don't think exceptional human resources is a concept that a lot of executive leaders can fathom. They've always seen it as the personnel department, the hirers, the firers, the party planners. They bring the birthday cakes out when Joe turns 50, and so be it. And, from my standpoint, I see a couple of things. Number one, I still see very underappreciated, undervalued, under-resourced HR professionals that are overwhelmed with more and more things that are put on their plate and less and less people resources to support them. And the evolution and impact of artificial intelligence in that area and a number of other things. What I also see is the fact that a lot of businesses, they are starving for effective human resources.
Yes.
And I think ultimately they have to navigate through making the investment, whether it be hiring the right person or making a financial investment to put recognition or talent acquisition or a new benefits enrollment process or whatever it is in place to make the experience better for people. Because I did this recently at a keynote, and it kind of was a controversial conversation because when I first started this idea of HR like a boss, my first slide was I hate HR, and I write about it in the book.
Yeah.
Crazy, like I hate HR. What are you talking about?
Yeah.
And honestly, in that first presentation, when I brought that up, Pete and Julie, I felt like it became like a therapy session. Did he just say that? And you know what? I feel that. And I said, tell me what that means. And I had people screaming and yelling and raising their hand. I had one lady crying in front of 120 of her own peers about how hard the job is and the fact that people don't appreciate her and what she's doing. And I was like, oh my gosh, I'm onto something. This is definitely something. There's a lot of hate and venom and to your point, lack of understanding of what it is they actually do, because they're all great people. I mean, I'm sure you've met a few payroll HR professionals that are duds or not really great people, but the vast majority of them are service oriented. They're caring, loving people. They're social workers, but they work in publicly traded companies or in privately held businesses. And I think that there's such a lack of appreciation and love. And so anyway, what I told this recent keynote was, you're failing. You're getting a 30% grade. And they're like, what do you mean? Well, Gallup says that 30% of employees are engaged at work. That means 70% of them aren't.
Yeah.
And we know what engaged means. And
Tragic.
I talk about like they feel like they're losing. They're not winning. Like you're engaged when you win. Think about when your favorite sports team is winning. Yep. And Sunday comes around and they're on TV. You got the jersey on, you got the outfit on.
Emotional. It's emotional.
Popcorn in, you're locked in, you're there from 1 to 4 o'clock.
Yep.
And then God forbid, for us Browns fans, just like Cleveland, it's the middle of the season. Season's over, and I don't even know the game's on a Sunday. Wait, did Browns play today?
I know.
I didn't even know. I'm like completely detached from it because we have to help people, support them, provide resources so they can win. They can be productive. They can get out of their work what they're looking for.
You're getting them into a room. You're saying, I hate HR. You like, this is the quintessential, I got to break you down so I can build you up. Like, is that what we're saying with
I'm
this?
I'm just trying to get their attention, Julie, and have a little fun with them and talk. I mean, it's a fact, right? You can't hide from the Gallup 12. I mean, it's one of the most well-known data points, at least from my perspective. In the human resource function. It has all those elements. I love it because of its simplicity. But no, I'm not trying to offend anyone. I know occasionally that I do when I say it, but I guess you got to move the needle a little bit, Julie, to get their attention.
Oh yeah,
and
for
the
sure.
idea is, what are we doing about it? Like, this is a data point. Are we just going to run away from it and ignore it? It's kind of funny. I ask people, anyone ever get a 30% on a test in college? That's usually how I start it. And they're like, no one raises their hand. Who's going to admit to getting 30%? Well, you're getting a 30% at work, according to Gallup 12. But anyway.
Crazy. You said a very important word there that I've been trying to communicate to folks or to the market and the C-suites, especially with my research, is investment. For so long, most companies don't look at HR and payroll like an investment outlet that they want to get something back out of. They want everything from it, but they want to put nothing into it. It's just a cost. It's just a burden. And I've said this to executives before. I was a solution architect at one point in my career, and I remember we were working on deals where we were doing these massive HR outsourcing deals for these massive companies. And you know, the leader there said to me, "Why do we never win on the payroll side of things?" And I said, "Well, what do we invest in it?" And she just sat there and she said, "I get it." And I said, "Yeah, you can't go to the bank and ask for money out of an account you don't put anything into. You can't get any interest out of that, right? So how do we get companies to like look at HR as an investment area that is going to enable or at least keep from deterring strategic paths? Because I think we're so reactive still about HR and payroll that it's like they're still doing things because they have to, not because they want to be great at it and it's going to give them all these great intangible and tangible outcomes. But how do we get that mindset to change in the C-suite that HR is an investment area and a strategic enabler that is the competitive advantage that you're missing?
I think a couple things to answer your question. I think first and foremost, I think HR and payroll professionals have to be able to measure the key metrics within their function. Talk about process efficiency, or in the spirit of human resources, turnover. Get whatever those key metrics are, 3, 4, 5, 6 of them, and nail them. Like just get them right, figure them out, move the needle in a positive way. Don't run away from the number. Run toward the number. They're simple. They're measurable. We don't have to reinvent it. That's the number one thing I would say. And then the second thing is to me around culture. I'm huge into people act with their feet. They act on how they feel. And the way we make people feel, I love Maya Angelou's quote. I use it all the time. It's not as important about what we do. It's not as important what we say. It's how we make people feel.
Right.
And there's an element of when you have a great culture, when it can protect itself, when you have core values that are clear, when you have people that want to come to work, they socialize, they feel good. And then you look at the executive team and it makes their lives easier. That would be what my sell job would be to a board. Hey, executive team, do you want your life to be easier, or do you want to die at 55 because you rose shareholder value at your company? Like, congratulations, but you're not around to enjoy it. Because at the end of the day, like I can tell you, I ran a business with not the world's greatest culture, and it became really clear to me we needed to change it. And now I don't have a problem putting my head in the pillow at night, falling asleep. And I wake up and I'm clear with my thoughts because we're clear on our strategy. We're clear on the team members that we hire. We have core values that make sense. We recognize them for it. Doesn't mean we're always going to be as profitable as every other company because we have to make some investment. And the last thing I'll end with is this. It's just such an anomaly to me that human capital, people, are absolutely the number one indirect expense, and in many cases, direct expenses for any business.
Generally,
And why in the world are we relegating human resources just to make party plans?
Right.
I don't understand it. And that to me also as well, why isn't human resources running toward analyzing that information? I have this suggestion I make to human resource professionals all the time. You must have an emphatically rehire conversation with every one of your directors about their team every single year.
That's a great point.
Preferably every 6 months, because if they are emphatically rehired, promote them. Get them into new roles, create new opportunities for them. If they're not an emphatic rehire, find a way to coach them up or coach them out, because those are the people that they're downgrading your culture. They're doing things that are causing you issues. And that's not simple. To say it's simple, to do it's not as simple.
Agreed.
But those are my simplistic ways of driving actual numbers and metrics. And then let's fix the culture and then make a huge difference in the business.
Agreed. I love that. Culture is everything for sure. Julie, you have something?
Well, it's a lot. And then I think about folks that sometimes get charged with doing something that impacts culture or change, like OCM. And so often that's not even owned by HR. And so it's like, I'm not sure that folks really acknowledge HR's role in that, or that HR itself sees itself as the writer, right? John, like you were saying, like, do we recognize that is a direct, mission and goal and objective of ours, or does it get spread out like peanut butter into different parts of our organization?
Yeah, peanut butter
can be delicious. I can tell you that. But
I love peanut butter.
One of the cool things I write about in my book, it's not cool that I wrote about it, but just a concept that makes things clear, is that you have to love what you do to do something like a boss, anything well.
Yes,
it's
love
true.
It. And then you must take ownership of it. And Julie, to your point, what I would suggest in that regard around change management, or something that feels outside of the scope of HR's responsibility, is if it has to do with a person, then it has to do with you, human resources. Yeah. And if you're not aware of what's going on or what the department's doing, like, just go be curious and ask some questions. Be like, hey, I heard about this project you're running. No one's in trouble. No one's getting fired. HR's here. No one's going on a performance improvement plan. I'm just super curious about what are you doing and how can I support you? Like imagine if you went to someone in your marketing department about the website that was struggling or social media. Are we going to leverage TikTok more or less? Or are we going to use X now because of political changes that don't align with the organization? I don't know what it is, but just that super being super curious and then offering a lending hand to help. And you do that often enough, people are going to be like, well, that's not like the HR person I've been around in the past. They're mad and mean. And when they
everyone's just Toby from The Office, right?
Oh God, I hate Toby from The Office. Oh, I hate Toby. Great character. Poor guy. I hate Toby from The Office.
You can shake that default creeper, like assumption that something's going on.
It's HR is more than the principal's office, is what I like to say. It's a hell of a lot more than just hiring and firing people, and paying people. It's strategic power. And I don't think that executives look at it that way. I still think there's just this, it's a burden. It's something I have to do. It's not something that I need to do. And it's unfortunate. And I think some of it is rooted in HR not being empowered. They're just sort of arm's length and we'll knock on your door when we need you. You know what I mean? And I think is a problem.
Maybe the other part of that is that we ourselves say, okay, well, we want to do something about this. And then HR goes right back to doing, the hiring and the reporting and the same stuff. It's always done.
Minutia.
Yeah. You don't prove.
You hit it on the head. Here's my suggestion. And again, it goes back to this love and ownership concept. This is a groundswell transformation. It is not, if executives were going to make this change, they would have made it 50 years ago. This has to be a groundswell where you get the Joe Safranics that come into your office that are exceptional human resource professionals, way different than the ones that were here before, maybe pushing personnel administration versus strategic human resource business strategy. Yes. And all of a sudden you're like, this feels different. Like, what are you doing? Why are you like that? And then all of a sudden, a year later, you look around like people aren't quitting. And we're making more money, and share value is going up, and we look and like Joe's part of the reason why.
HR leaders are business leaders. They just sit in HR.
They have to be, and I write about it in my book, and it's one of the things I'm always trying to seek out this creature. Tell me a CEO. I want to meet a CEO who had their groundwork function was human resources. It is rarefied air.
I tell you this. I've said before on this show, I think every executive in the C-suite should have to spend a year in HR or payroll and just live the life of it and see it. And I used to love, there used to be like programs. I know GE used to do this and others where they would rotate executive that there were in their succession program and their development programs through segments of their business. And I believe HR was one of the areas where they had, or finance too, where they had to spend some time in addition to the frontline manufacturing or whatever. And I think that's a brilliant, brilliant thing. I think if you can have that lens and have that experience, it's going to make you a much more rounded business leader. Ultimately.
I feel like even contemplating that, Pete, like if you knew that were happening, just like the boss that goes undercover, right, in his own organization, like would you give them the tour of HR, the way HR's mindset is and the way it's operating today? Or would you really be trying to figure out, like, what should I be showcasing with my executive and my leader? Is it what I consider my day-to-day grind that's getting me my 30% of the Gallup poll, right?
Yeah.
Or should I be showing up to that whole exercise with something that might not exist wholly the way it is today?
Yeah. Think about, I know I've mentioned sports a few times. My analogies to this is simple. You have an NBA team, has 12 players on the roster. It's a multi-million, maybe in some regards, billion-dollar asset or organization. And do you know how much time, energy, and resource they put into those 12 players? They have so many coaches. Oh, yeah. They have all this workout capability. Like, I don't know if any of you had to recently get an MRI, but it takes weeks, if not months, to get an MRI. And for those of you not in the United States, it takes you probably even longer. If an athlete tears out his ankle or knee or something, they get an MRI like in 5 minutes.
Yeah, that afternoon.
So they have all these resources for their most important asset, the people they put on there. Like, why are we not doing the same thing in business?
Yeah.
Like, our people are our business.
Yeah.
They create the strategy, they do the work, they they slop the sink. They do everything that we need to do to make sure that business gets done. But we're just assuming that you got hired and you'll figure it out.
Yeah, because we're looking at them as a commodity instead of an appreciating asset. And I think that that's what human capital is. It's an asset of the organization that can't go on the balance sheet in exactly, but it is the power, the IP, and the fuel for moving the org forward. So no, I agree.
I do feel like
all these athletes. We need to make all of our HR athletes more powerful.
I do feel like younger generations are just going to school us in that, because they don't, like they'll when it's time for a break, they just up and take a break, right?
Yeah.
Like, okay, I'm done. Maybe I'll come back. Maybe I won't come back, right? And no longer behaving like you're a fixed asset that is fixed and can't really do anything is maybe part of the problem, right? We just assume that that's the case, and we're learning differently with new generations.
Yeah. John, where does tech come into making you helping you HR like a boss? Like, what is your perspective on that?
Dedicated a whole chapter to it. Chapter 11. Start off with my friend Tim Sackett, another great potential guest. If he's not been on the show, Tim is an awesome thought leader and a friend from Michigan.
A fellow Work Defined podcast, HR Famous. Yeah,
HR Famous. Yeah, you got it exactly.
I love that.
Tim's a great guy. He was written or quoted in my book as saying, number one lacking competency in human resources is technology, and it's not even close. Data is second. And this is what I think at the end of the day, you in human resources, I hate to tell this to you, but you're not going to get more investments right now. You're going to get less.
Agreed.
But you do have technology that you have, I assume, within your organization, some sort of HR, payroll, benefits, platform, time and attendance. I cannot encourage you enough to learn, understand it, leverage that tool to maximize the capacity of it, because it will make your job easier. You can push out work from a self-service perspective or other workflows or automations. And you need it because you don't want to be spending time pressing buttons or moving paper. You have to have automation and workflow so that you can do the strategic work. You can do the business strategy planning. You can actually leave your office and go to an org development conversation or an org change management conversation about, hey, what are you doing and how can I help you? You couldn't do that if you're bombarded in open enrollment and you had to do all that administrative work. And I think technology advancement and human resources, and having spoken about this and getting the gauge of it, it's just not a place that a lot of HR professionals feel comfortable. I think they feel even less comfortable there than they do when we talk about finances and profit and loss statements. And these are just foundational things as a business person we must do. Like think of the most successful people that you know. They probably leverage technology. They understand finances. If I'm talking about business success, they probably know a little bit about, or more than a little bit about, sales and marketing. Well, why can't an HR professional have that same diverse set of knowledge to be able to really impact the organization?
Is flexibility the most valuable currency in today's talent marketplace? Pete Tiliakis here, inviting you to join me on May 20th at 12 p.m. Eastern Time for a live panel discussion featuring HR executives from Betterment, Payroll HR, and Threat HCM. And together we'll share how modern organizations are leveraging flexibility enablers to shape highly personalized and differentiated employee experiences for talent strategies that drive measurable business results. Plus, we'll share proven strategies for hybrid and remote working success and best practices for aligning your HR, payroll, and benefits in support of a flexible workplace. So don't miss the opportunity to learn why flexibility is the must-have competitive advantage in today's workplace. Register at the link in the post, and I'll see you on May 20th. Yeah, I agree. It's one of the biggest problems. We've talked about this too. I've seen over the years as a practitioner myself, as someone who has consulted and obviously helped companies. One of the things that I notice about HR is HR tends to get rutted into a lane, right? I'm a recruiter. I'm a learning whatever. I'm this, I'm that. And they don't often see the big picture because they're so focused on what they do in their little world. And I would tell you, you mentioned finance. I mean, payroll, like if I don't know how it is now, but in my day, when I was doing due diligence, almost every time or any time we were, or even as a practitioner, we started to have conversations about anything related to pay. HR kind of just melted into the bushes like Homer Simpson on that meme, and their fingers go in their ears, and it's like, it's payroll. I can't, and I can't imagine like, do you realize how checked out you are and how in tune payroll actually is with what's going on in HR? We know your process is actually better than all of you. and yet they distance themselves from it, and they run from it. And it's like, why not lean into these things and diversify and work together? And I just think that's a thing that plagues a lot of the professionals out there, because they're just so siloed and so walled off. I think it's a problem. And you're right. I think if they took a more business leadership approach to it and said, let me understand the bigger picture, let me figure out how to make these things work and benefit me, instead of sort of running from them. I don't get it. And yeah, bums me out. Julie, you see that, right?
Julie, I think you just got the perfect topic for next year's APA Congress, how to build a better relationship with your HR colleagues. I did that once in Cleveland.
Right.
Yes.
And it was amazing how many people showed up and how much they dished on HR to begin with. And I said, this is part of the problem. You understand this.
Yeah.
They're not here and we're talking badly about them.
Yeah.
We need to talk positively about them and build a better relationship. And I can't agree with you more. But you're talking about numbers and finance. And I think sometimes HR professionals, I got into HR because I like people. I'm not really good at math. Like, I get that's a reason, but it sounds like a bit of an excuse.
Yeah.
Because at the end of the day, the scorecard for a business is your P&L. It's your it's how your business is measured.
That's exactly it. The adjacent skills around it, business case. They might not do like payroll and go la la la, right? But it's still, the first thing is going to be, well, we care about the, that we have the right fit and the right quality and the right characteristics and the right features. And no, it's not about the money. And you're thinking, okay, this is part of your problem too.
No, I agree with you. I agree that, John, one of the things that I'll say, maybe folks don't want to hear this, but it's the truth, is I would argue that HR is one of the most disrespectful groups to payroll of any of the organization. And I think that's largely because they don't understand it and they don't actually respect what those folks do. I saw that a lot, where it's like, oh, that's just payroll, we don't, whatever. And I think coming together is really important right now. And I would love to see that happen more. Do you feel that's happening, or you're shaking your head?
I will never forget. I once sold a deal at ADP.
Yeah.
HR payroll deal to the HR function. And we went to do the kickoff and they invited the payroll manager to that meeting. And I have never felt such discomfort in a meeting in my life.
Yeah.
The first time she found out about the fact that they switched systems is when they got the meeting invite to the kickoff to the new HR and payroll system. Yeah. And rightfully so, that person sat in that room and she was pissed off. I mean, so pissed off. And I regretted how we sold that deal when I had that experience. I regretted that because it was not the right thing to do for that organization, even though I was following the guides of the HR, my coach inside of the business that we ended up selling the deal. Like, I was paid to sell the client on ADP, but I will never forget that. And I agree with you, Pete. There's something up with it. It's funny because, again, I'm bringing up sports events. It's like I just went to Pittsburgh recently. It's like Cleveland and Pittsburgh. We're like brothers, but for some reason we can't get along with each other. The cities are exactly the same. We have our own little weird like cities and cultures inside of a city. And HR and payroll, they sit side by side. They're so intertwined with one another. We need the segregation of duties between them clearly, but at the same time, there's got to be a great formation of relationship. And to me, what I think it is they just don't understand what the other side is doing.
They don't.
They don't. They are on the same team. We're on the same team.
And it isn't part of it, though, the fact that, we call out those two groups. And HR, I think a little bit in HR's defense, HR would say, well, you keep calling me HR, but in fact, I'm recruiting and I'm learning and I'm performance and I'm benefits and I'm total rewards. And I'm, already that HR umbrella has to cover, 6 or 8 domains of things, and then we add engagement, all this other stuff. And so not to be, to demean the fact that, yes, there's something there. There's definitely something there, but there's also this broad scope. And so payroll is one of, is it 8 or 10 or 12 things? And it's not the one maybe they own it or maybe they don't. Right. But I think there's so much to that umbrella that not only do we have to sort out that relationship with payroll, but we also have to sort out how we think about that whole umbrella of HR goods that's in the package, right?
Yeah. So difficult to do HR well, Julie, to that point, is there's so many disparate responsibilities. Tell me another department that has that varying disparity of responsibilities. You mentioned them, 10, 12, 15 of them.
Yeah.
And you can only do a few. It's just like anything in life. If you have 15 things to do, you can only do just a few of them really, really well. And the other ones get lost in the shuffle or not done quite as well as they could be.
Yeah, it's important to remember. We've talked about this too. Is payroll is one of the few, especially in a publicly traded company, maybe accounting. Payroll is one of the few processes where your CEO can go to prison if they don't do their job. And I don't know that a lot of folks even realize that. And it's scary. So hopefully we get more modernization. But look, I want to ask you, when it comes to organizations that are struggling, and we know there are still many, many of them, maybe they have some of these issues we've talked about, maybe it's other things. Like, what is your advice to someone, an HR leader right now that is in an organization that wants to do it? Because I've had some recent conversations with executive leaders in the C-suites that they know they need to do something. They know they need to do more with HR. They know they need to get more strategic. They know they need better tech and better data, but they're paralyzed. They're literally paralyzed. They don't know how to move forward. Like, what's your advice? Like, what do you do in that case when you are kind of in a paralyzed sort of state?
I think some of that paralyzation to me comes from you're so focused on the outcome that you're not necessarily focusing on the areas that are going to change the outcome, which are people and process improvement, technology advancement. Those are the things that are going to move the needle to allow you to do things better, cheaper, and faster. It's just not, hey, we need to sell this many widgets, or we need to improve our efficiency within our hiring process of this, or reduce our turnover. That's an outcome. We got to layer all the way back to all the things that cause us to have a high degree of turnover or not being able to produce the number of widgets that we have. And I got a great piece of advice from a friend when I was writing HR Like a Boss. They said, HR professionals need a how-to. Okay, how do we do that? And we built, I was told you need a money chapter in your book. So chapter 14 of our book is the HR Like a Boss business plan. We have 5 foundational items that we talk about. The first is, do you have a purposeful commitment? Do you know why your business exists on this earth? What is the good it's trying to do in the world? And then you build your core values, your mission, and your vision from that foundational piece. Second, people-centric. Are we people-centric? I have this saying all the time, is that if you look your CEO in the eye and say, are we a people-centric organization? What will you put ahead of our people? Tell me that you won't put anything in front of them. And if they waver or tell you something else, or their shareholder value or their boat they want to buy or whatever the case is, then you got a problem. You got an uphill battle. We have to be people-centric. Next from there is process continuity. To me, it's all about iterating. Like anything that you want to change, look at the process. Just anything that's not working right, look at the person responsible for it and the process that you have. Because my guess, out of one of those two or the combination, there's an issue. It needs refined. It needs overhauled. It needs iterated, whatever the case is. Then if we do that purpose, we have the right people, we have processes that have continuity, then we can start to look at productivity effectively. And I make productivity as simple as possible. I challenge HR professionals. This is another area, Julie, where I try to clear the room by insulting my HR friends, is you write terrible job descriptions because I don't understand them. I don't get them. I don't know what the most important thing I'm supposed to do with my job. Because here's the thing, we all have such short attention spans, and it's going to get worse and worse. If you have a short attention span, you get back redirected into life of work, then that number one thing you're responsible for better be clear. It better be measurable. Yeah. You better know where you stand at any single moment. When you do it well, get recognized for it. When you don't, be held accountable. Yeah. And then, if we do all those 4 things, guess what we can talk about? Profitable characteristics. What makes up profit within our organization? This is something I'm really steadfastly pushing inside the business community. Every single employee should understand how to read your financial statement. Everyone.
Great point.
Intern, CEO, CFO, head of HR. I don't care what the role is. They need to understand every component, because then all of a sudden they're going to be better employees. And on top of that, they're going to become better investors because they understand how to read a profit and loss. I know when I took an accounting course in college, it didn't mean anything to me. I could have cared less. Debit, credit, revenue,
who gives a shit,
etc.
Right?
It was just all gibberish. But then when I could practically apply it into my business at ADP, or certainly in my own business now today, those are real dollars. I know the people that are costing us that money, and it goes a long way. And those are the foundational items. If you're stuck in it, you have to build a system. You have to have a set strategy to do it. And we try to develop that in the book. And it seems to be resonating with people quite a bit, which is pretty cool.
That's the business leader mindset, I think.
And I bet that baseline for the know how to read your financials is a lot lower than the 30% Gallup poll.
Oh, I bring that up in my presentation sometime, where I'm in a room and I think, okay, which one is raise a hands if your company has at least half of your employees that know how to reach their financial statement. Then I back them and say, okay, how about half of the HR department? We'll start there.
Yes.
And I get no one raises their hand. They don't know how to do it. And it's sad to me. It's not that they don't know how to do it. I shouldn't say it that way. They just haven't invested the time to learn it, because all of a sudden, imagine again, similar situation. You walk into your CFO's desk or office and say, hey, Joe or Jim or Sally, I want to better understand our financial statement. What do you think they're going to say? Oh my gosh, I would love to tell you. They're going to nerd out about it, and they're going to take you to other places so you understand it. And I'm as you know, an avid sports fan, golfer, and that's the scorecard. Like, how are we keeping score at our business if we don't understand a financial statement?
Yeah, no.
Hey, Pete, maybe we can get folks to walk into to Payroll and ask, how exactly do you calculate overtime?
Yeah.
Or something, right?
An easy one, right? That's an easy one. Everybody should be able to know that one. John, look, I want to bring this home with kind of some tips for the audience here. What are a few boss moves HR pros can do like right now in the shadows of what's going on, right? There's a lot of angst around the economy. There's so many obstacles and hurdles and volatility that HR is dealing with. Everyone's trying to compete in the age of AI, a lot of uncertainty there, just all that's going on in this soup, storm, whatever you want to call it. Like, what are a couple of boss moves you would tell someone to do right now if they're an HR leader kind of wondering, like, where do I go next with this?
I would first and foremost start by telling them to take care of themselves, love themselves, appreciate the work that they do. Maybe others won't. Build a network and a community of people that can support you in that process. That's the first thing I would say. Take care of yourself first, so then you can take care of others. When we think of, okay, then who do I take care of first after I've taken care of myself? Please go help your managers. Please, please, I beg you, because they're all struggling. They don't know what they're doing. They're in a job that they probably shouldn't be. I guess I'm really throwing a large blanket over all managers, but the vast majority of them are struggling in their job, right? They don't know how to do it. We're
not setting them up for success.
We're not setting them up for success, and they're figuring this out. They're skinning their knee in someone's livelihood. I mean, it's just shameful in some regards. I then go and talk about emotional intelligence. I think every single employee should have some sort of training or resource to improve their EQ, because it will transcend in all aspects of their life, how they communicate, how they handle conflict, how they deal with a wide array of emotions and a wide array of people. I think that's critically important. And then the last thing I will share is, I'll go back to where we started, is it's really not about your shareholder value. It is important. Trust me, it is important. But I know you probably won't remember the stock price as much as you will the relationships of people that you developed. And it's critical for us in HR and payroll to be cognizant that we are being scored by how people feel. And they're going to do their job exceptionally well if they're safe and comfortable and feel in charge and accountable and empowered. And they're going to do the exact opposite if they feel scared and nervous and not supported and everything else. And how you make people feel is, to me, one of the most important things that we can do as business and HR professionals, because I share this all the time, and I'll end with this. Isn't it funny, the number one complaint that most people, when you talk about in business, what's your number one complaint? They complain about people. Like, I don't like Joe in accounting. I don't like Sally in this particular area. They bother me. People bother me. And then they retire. They retire from work. And what's their number one complaint? Oh, I really miss the people.
I don't have any.
I really miss Julie. She was so great. We had so many great experiences. It's like I don't understand this. Like, how did we get to this?
We abuse the ones we love.
Yeah, I guess exactly right. Exactly, isn't that so true? Let's figure this out.
Yeah.
Let's love each other. Let's care for each other. Let's do the best work we can. And I got to tell you, to both of you, keep up the great work you're doing. The community is recognizing what you do, and the recordings that you have, and the spirit you have, and the dominance of the data that you're giving out. And Pete, I almost cried when I saw your post about chief payroll officer. I'm like, oh my gosh, what an incredible, great idea. I can't wait to meet the first, second, 100th person on the way to your charge. And I applaud you for the work you're doing. I'm so thankful to have had some time to share a little bit of my story, and hopefully people were inspired. Don't go buy the book. It's okay. You don't have to buy the book. Just follow us on LinkedIn, or come join our community for free, or go ask a friend how you can support them best.
Yeah. Thank you,
Sounds great.
John. This is so fantastic. You nailed so many things that I would say as well, and I would say double down on that emotional intelligence. It's going to be the most important skill that your people can have in the age of AI and automation and augmentation. So I love it, John. Where can everyone get in touch with you? I know I have a ton of your links. I'm going to put them in there, but you mentioned like a newsletter and a community. I think I'm missing that one. Where is the best place to get in touch with you?
The simplest way to remember is just go to hrlikeaboss.com, hrlikeaboss.com. You'll find all the free resources we have. We have a community we developed that has 25 SHRM recertification credits. A podcast, every show gets a half hour SHRM recertification credit.
Nice.
You can find me on LinkedIn. Good luck spelling my last name. Pete did a great job pronouncing it. I won't spell it because we don't have that much time left. And then simply you can email me at john@willory.com, John, John, at Willory, WILLORY.com. And Will and Mallory, that's how my firm came to be. I have a son, Will, and a daughter, Mallory. People ask it all the time. That's how Willory came to be. But
I love it.
And
kind of like Miramax.
I won't give you my personal address. I don't want anybody knocking on my door, especially when I'm on an important podcast like this.
Especially after starting out.
I know. John, thank you so much. This has been so informative for us. I know it's going to be great for our audience. And thank you so much. And I hope everyone connects with you and checks out your content. And let's check in, man. Maybe come back at some point and we do this again. It's been a great conversation. Thank you so much for joining us.
It's been my pleasure. Thank you.